Now for the next story, President Trump said last night that he has directed the Treasury Department to stop minting new pennies. So last night, the president wrote on Truth Social, "For far too long, the United States has minted pennies which literally cost us more than 2 cents. This is so wasteful. I have instructed my Secretary of the U.S. Treasury to stop producing new pennies. Let's rip the waste out of our great nation's budget, even if it's a penny at a time." Last month, Doge shared a similar message on X, writing, "The penny costs over 3 cents to make and cost U.S. taxpayers over $179 million in fiscal year 2023. The mint produced over 4.5 billion pennies in fiscal year 2023, around 40% of the 11.4 billion coins for circulation produced." And we'll touch on those numbers a bit more in a minute. But going back to 1989, lawmakers and presidents have been saying the same thing. In 1989, a law was introduced to round cash transactions to the nearest nickel, though that did not pass. And more recently, in 2013, President Obama said that anytime we're spending more money on something that people don't actually use, that's an example of something we should probably change, referring to the penny. So here's the thing. The mint loses money on the penny, and the nickel, for that matter, and the penny remains the highest share of coins minted. In 2024, the number of pennies minted accounted for 57% of all coins produced that year. And while it's true that the penny is the third largest annual revenue generator when it comes to coin revenue, penny revenue is really not much when compared to the quarter, which is the biggest revenue generator. The penny generates roughly $32 million in annual revenue for the mint. The dime, which is the second largest annual revenue generator, generates about $84 million in annual revenue. And the quarter generates almost all coin revenue, bringing in just over $400 million annually. In its 2024 annual report, the U.S. Mint reported losing $85.3 million on nearly 3.2 billion pennies that it produced in fiscal year 2024. It noted that every penny cost almost 4 cents to produce, which is up from 3 cents the year before. The nickel, which obviously isn't too relevant to the story, but it's an interesting fact, cost nearly 14 cents to make, despite it only being worth 5. If the United States were to discontinue the penny, and we'll talk about what would have to happen, but it would join many other countries who have done away with their 1-cent coins. Canada stopped minting its 1-cent coin in 2012. Australia stopped minting its 1 and 2 cent coins in 1992. Switzerland stopped producing its 1-cent coin in 2006. The Bahamas stopped in 2020. Basically, the only countries still using a 1-cent coin are us and the UK. In fact, when Canada stopped producing its penny in 2012, its production cost was 1.6 cents per penny, which is obviously way lower than what the production cost currently is here in the United States. And for the last 19 years, the cost of producing the penny has exceeded the actual value of the penny. So to many people, the idea of eliminating the penny makes total sense. You know, why produce a coin that costs more to make than it's actually worth? But for purposes of sharing both sides of the coin, get it? If you're watching on YouTube, you saw the wink that I just threw in there. But basically, the arguments for keeping the penny stem really from charitable concerns. Charities often rely on people giving their spare change for a cause. You know, these charity boxes we see at store checkouts or the buckets that are held by the on-street collectors. And without spare change, the charities would suffer. There's also the importance of spare change to those that are homeless. As we know, people are more likely to give their coins to a homeless person rather than giving bills. But these arguments actually more so apply to coins generally, not necessarily specific to pennies, because even without pennies, we'd still have spare change, but just not as much. Spare change would still exist, though. But some say, too, that eliminating the penny wouldn't actually save money, but instead make it so more nickels would have to be produced to compensate for the elimination of pennies. And as we talked about, nickels cost more to produce than pennies do. So the argument is that eliminating pennies would actually cost more due to an increased demand for nickels. Now, as far as what would have to happen for penny production to actually come to a halt, it's possible that the Treasury Secretary has the authority to pause new penny production, but full discontinuation of the penny would most likely require an act of Congress. So stay tuned there. If anything develops, I'll keep you updated.